to the biosensors. So your unit 6 is all about biosensors and automation in laboratory. So let us see what is this biosensors. So there are many biosensors such as thermometer, pH meter, glucometer, pulse machine, pulse oximeter, electronic blood pressure apparatus, and certain glucose strips. Certain card strips can also be stated as a biosensors. So these are few types of biosensors we have. So basically, when I say a biosensor, a biosensor is a combination of many parts. It's a combination of many components. Together, they will work and they will act as a single entity, which can be stated as a biosensor. The individual components by themselves don't have any function. But when we keep these components together, they will give a rational outcome. They will function together and they will give a functional outcome. Okay. So typically a biosensor consists of an analyte that it will detect, and it contains a sensor. Okay, a sensory layer that can able to sense the analyte. Then it has a transducer. Transducer is a component that will convert one form of energy to another form of energy. Such components are called as transducers. So for example, light energy will be converted to electrical energy. Mechanical energy can be converted to electrical energy. Sound waves, sound waves will be converted to electrical energy. So the component that converts one form of energy to another form of energy, such components can be stated as a transducer. Now this transducer will convert it into an electrical signal, and this signal will be amplified. The electric current will be amplified via amplifiers. Then the amplified electricity will be given to an output device such as a monitor, some meters, something that will give a visual clues, visual output. So that will be the output. So these are the basic components of a biosensor. I will tell you a very interesting story. 100 years ago, no 100 years, I think 70 years ago. So there is a person from Madras University in India. He is working with many types of crystals, crystals of stones, many types of stones. He's working with these stones. One day he came across a particular stone. This stone is called as quartz crystal. It's a crystal which is called as quartz crystal. There is some interesting properties of this quartz crystal. When our scientist, he applied electricity, he took positive and negative electrodes and he kept electricity to a quartz crystal. He simply did this experiment. He just kept a electric wire to a crystal like this. So he took a crystal, he kept two electric wires. Then he observed a very interesting phenomenon. Immediately after keeping two wires to this crystal, the crystal started vibrating. The stone started vibrating when we applied the electricity. This is a groundbreaking discovery, a groundbreaking accidental discovery. So, so he just applied electricity and a crystal started vibrating. We didn't see much interesting by this phenomenon. Let me mute everyone. Okay, for us it is nothing. What is there if a crystal vibrating? when there is an electricity. But our scientist, he didn't stop there. He thought usually crystals are electric bad conductors. They won't pass electricity. But our crystal, it passed electricity and also it vibrated. It given an action against the applied electricity. So his thought is, he thought of doing it reverse engineering. So he took a crystal, he kept two wires to the crystal, no electricity. He just take a empty crystal, he connected two wires to the crystal, and he took one hammer and he started tapping the crystal. Once he started tapping the crystal, the miracle happened. Whenever he is hitting the crystal generating electricity. The stone started giving electricity upon getting stimuli from a mechanical source. Upon hitting the crystal hardly, this crystal generating electricity. A groundbreaking discovery. So there are many potential applications with this particular discovery. One such interesting discovery is, we got a pregnant woman and we need to scan the fetus. We need to scan the developing baby. So the idea is, first I will send some waves into the abdomen. So first of all, I cannot insert any pipes or I cannot insert any needle into the, this uterine cavity, because that may harm the baby. But I want to know the status of the baby. Without opening the body, how can I able to know the baby status? So then they discover this particular application, this particular device. This device is called ultrasonography actually. So how ultrasonography works is, first we have two probes. One probe is for generation of sound waves. So here the sound waves are the frequency of sound waves are so high that they are at the ultra frequencies. That means higher than the visible range. Such waves are called ultrasonic waves. So now we send ultrasonic waves into the abdomen. So ultrasonic waves going into the abdomen. Upon hitting any substance, you know this phenomenon. If you clap in an empty room, after few seconds you can able to hear the clap. You can able to hear the echo of your clap. So similarly, first I will send a sound signal into the abdomen. Sound signal will travel to the abdomen. It will hit whatever obstructed. Then it will uh, reflect the sound wave. The reflected sound wave will be detected by a second probe. The second probe is a quartz crystal. So it is a two component actually. One is sound generator and other one is sound obtainer. So this second probe is a quartz crystal. So what does this second probe did? It will take the incoming sound wave and it will convert. Here I kept a quartz crystal. Now this crystal will convert this sound wave into an electrical signal, and that electrical signal will be processed in the computer. So we kept a software in the computer. Now what the software will do is, it will already calculated the output sound signal. So it calculated that it sent this frequency sound uh, at a constant rate. So it knows that this signal should receive back for every 1 second. For every 1 second, the wave should come receive back to the probe. If there is any delay in the receiving signal, that indicates maybe the sound wave has been absorbed by some source. So it will map that location. Okay, the one sound wave has been absorbed. So it will pinpoint one location. And second wave, like this, per second, it will generate some 2 to 3 lakhs waves, and it will generate 2 to 3 lakh individual point resources in the computer. Once you map all the points, all the incoming data of this sound wave points in the computer via software, now you can able to pinpoint, now you can able to see a image, a formation of an image within a computer software. And that image is corresponding to the substance that the waves heated inside the body. Here the substance will be developing baby. And this is how a ultrasonography works. Ultrasonography is one best example of biosensor. A very highly efficient, non-invasive biosensor. We are not harming patient at all. We are not even touching the baby. But still, we can able to visualize the baby who is in the womb before even birth. So what a amazing discoveries. So this is one potential application of biosensor, ultrasonography. The concept of biosensors started with one particular person. I forgot his name, but I will show you in the next slide. So he is the one who developed this biosensor for detection of blood glucose levels in the blood, glucose levels in the blood. So he developed a receptor that can able to uptake, that can able to measure the enzymatic reactions happening within the blood upon addition of certain buffers or solutions. He also discovered another very interesting property, which is measurement of oxygen levels in the blood without even touching the blood, without even harming your body, without even inserting any needle or collection of your blood. This person developed a technique to measure the oxygen levels in the hemoglobin of a blood. We can able to measure oxygen levels in the blood without even touching the blood. How is it possible? How can anyone in this world can able to measure oxygen which is there inside the blood without even touching the blood, without even performing any biochemical test? The idea is, we know that hemoglobin has iron. So heme plus globin. Globin is a protein. Heme is a iron component, iron moiety. Okay, uh, it has this central iron with copper atoms surrounding the iron molecule. Sorry, center copper with this iron molecules. I think Mubassar Islam, you have to shut down your camera. Let me shut down it. Okay. Anyway, so now where am I? Oxygen, blood oxygen. Now listen to me very carefully. So this iron, we already know the property of iron. So if you take an iron nail keel and if you expose it to the open air for 1 to 2 months, what will happen? The iron will start rusting. It will oxidize. It will react with the oxygen in the atmosphere and it will undergo a chemical reaction resulting in rusting of iron. You can able to see a brick color layer, okay, a powdery layer on the surface of nail because of oxidation. That is called rusting. So iron, upon reacting with the atmospheric oxygen, it converted into a red color component. And the same thing happening in our body. The iron present in the red blood in the hemoglobin is reacting with the oxygen, resulting in rusting of hemoglobin, resulting in discoloration of hemoglobin. The oxygenated hemoglobin will have more reddish hue. Oxygenated hemoglobin will have more red color. Whereas carboxylated carbon dioxide containing hemoglobin molecule will be in slight bluish color. Very minute actually. We cannot detect with naked eye. For that we need to have high-end machines to observe the slight variation between an oxygenated hemoglobin and a carboxylated hemoglobin. Carboxylated hemoglobin will have a slight bluish tint, bluish hue to the hemoglobin, whereas oxygenated hemoglobin will have more bright and reddish hue to the oxygenated hemoglobin. Now, I know that hemoglobin colors will vary depending upon their saturation with oxygen or carbon dioxide. Oxygenated more red color, carbon dioxide blue color. So my idea is I will send a light. I will send a light to the hemoglobin molecule. And I already know the incidence light intensity. For example, very simply, I sent 100 lumens of light, a red color light. Keep in mind, I sent 100 lumens of red color light into a hemoglobin molecule. If it is oxygenated, an oxygenated hemoglobin must have red color. Since I already sent a red color, the overall value I will get will be around 90. So on the opposite side, when I detected the transmitter light should be around 90 lumens. 90 lumens can be detected in the transmitter light. Almost, the light has been went very slightly. It didn't absorb much by the hemoglobin. The light has been almost passed 100 light, 90 detected on the opposite side. That indicates it is an oxygenated hemoglobin. Then second phenomenon, I take a carboxylated hemoglobin, which is in blue color. I sent red light. Now this red light will be absorbed by the blue color. So the transmitter light will be only 60 lumens. Incident is 100, but detected is 60 lumens. That indicates the hemoglobin is carboxylated. So here, the same phenomenon I can do on my finger. Assuming inside at the capillaries, at the tip of my finger, there are blood capillaries, there will be blood. So I will keep a detector in between my finger like this. On the top, I will keep light source, and on the bottom, I will keep the detector that will detect the incident light, the transmitter light. So when I keep this component, this light and detector component in between my finger, now I can able to measure the blood oxygen levels. Not only this, because of beating heart, the blood vessels will be having a constant pulse. Blood vessels will constantly move. Now I can able to even detect that minute movement of the blood vessel, which will be indicated as a pulse rate. So the constant fluctuations in this light is fluctuation pulse rate, whereas the light intensity indicates the oxygen concentration of the blood. So now I can able to simultaneously measure oxygen levels. At the same time, I can also measure the pulse rate of the blood. So this is with a single device, and that is pulse oximeter. And pulse oximeter we have extensively used due to our COVID pandemic. It became a necessary thing to measure the oxygen levels, the blood saturated oxygen levels. It should be around 96. Less than 96 indicates a dangerous condition. So the person who discovered this pulse oximeter, he is regarded as a father of biosensors. He is regarded as a father of biosensors, and he missed Nobel Prize actually. He has been nominated twice or thrice for uh, Nobel Prize receiver. I hope you know Nobel Prize is the highest prize that a scientist can get. So now you can understand the potential applications of biosensors. They are the semi-automatic machines that will able to give result without human interference. There are automatic machines that can able to interpret and give result of one or two analytes without supervision of an external source, such as humans. Those devices can be stated as a biosensors. So we have many types of biosensors. The variations in these biosensors mostly depends upon these three components. Those three components are the type of analyte we want to detect. In order to detect this analyte, what type of receptor we are using, and what type of transducer we are using to receive the signal. Are we going to receive a light signal? Then we need to use an optical transducer. Are we going to receive a mechanical signal? Then we are going to use a piezoelectrical transducer. Are we going to receive any heat signal, heat? Then we will use heat detect heat transducers. So depending upon the type of signal we will receive, we will use a corresponding transducer. So transducer depends upon the type of receptor we are using or the type of signal we want to capture. After this, the other components will be same. The signal will be amplified and the amplified signal will be given output. That is same. But these components will change depending upon the type of analyte we are using. Okay. Say for example, if you want to detect any antigens in the body sample, then the bioelements you can use can be an enzyme, it can be a antibody, or it can be a some DNA. So these bioelements can be detected by, enzymes will either give electrochemical signal. Okay, they upon getting reacting, they may give certain electricity, and that electricity can be detected by transducers, or we can use optical transducers, colorimetric transducers, mass transducers, or even magnetic transducers can be used. Magnetic transducers we will extensively used in this MRI scans, magnetic resonance imaging. So in MRI scans, we will use magnetic transducers. And upon transducers generating the electricity, that signal will be processed. It will be amplified and it will be processed, the signal. So these are the basic components of biosensors. So the definition of a biosensor is it is a self-contained integrated device that is capable of providing specific qualitative or semi-quantitative analytical information using a biological recognizing element, which is in direct spatial contact with a transducing element. So this is the definition given by IUPAC, International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry in 1998. Okay. So current definition of biosensor is like this. So a sensor that integrates a biological element with a physiochemical transducer to produce an electrical signal proportional to the signal of analyte converted to the detector can be stated as a biosensors. Okay, so Leland C. Clark, he is regarded as a father of biosensors, and he is 1 second, students. I don't know why, but Getting all right. So Leland C. Clark is termed as a pioneer in this biosensors, and he is the one who is responsible for development of this pulse oximeter. So today, I think he developed this pulse oximeter in long back, I think in 1980s. So after 30 years, due to corona pandemic, we are extensively relied on his invention actually. So we have extensively relied on pulse oximeter for assessing the patients with COVID infection, corona infection. So components of a typical biosensor, it will have a physical component and a biological component. Physical components include a transducer and an amplifier, whereas a biological component including a sensitive element and an analyte. So these are the basic components of a biosensors. So definition of a sensor. So a sensor is an object whose purpose is to detect events or changes in its environment, then provide a corresponding output, can be stated as a sensor. And a transducer, it is a device that converts one form of energy to another form of energy, are called as a transducers. An amplifier. Amplifier means it is the process of increasing a electrical signal. Such instruments are called amplifiers. And oh, Leland C. Clark discovered this one in 1956, more than 60, 70 years. Right. So there are many types of biosensors. We have colorimetric biosensors, potentiometric biosensors, acoustic wave biosensors, amperometric biosensors, optical biosensors. Okay. So colorimetric biosensors means they will detect the heat produced by a bioelement, such as many enzymes undergo catalyzed reactions. Upon they will release exothermic reaction. That means they will release certain heat, and that heat will be detected by colorimetric biosensors. For example, our glucose. So usually we will use this glucose automatic kit, right? Glucometer. So the glucometer works on a principle of this colorimetric biosensor. So in this glucose kit, we will have this GOPD, okay, GORPOD method. That means glucose oxidase peroxidase method. So here we will add certain oxidases and peroxidase enzymes to this analyte, and that will generate electricity, and that will generate a heat, and that heat will be measured by our sensor, by our glucometer. So glucometer is a typical example of a colorimetric biosensor. Then potentiometric biosensor. So potentiometric biosensors, they will measure the potential electrical energy differences between any two barriers. That means the H plus ion concentration between um, outside the cell and inside the cell. So such biosensors are called potentiometric biosensors. Usually these biosensors are extensively used for the purpose of detection of a pH of the analyte. So pH of a test solution can be detected by this potentiometric biosensors. Then acoustic wave biosensors. So piezoelectric biosensors. I said, right, these piezoelectric crystals will be used. So acoustic wave biosensors are used for ultrasonography. So simply one best example will be ultrasound for pregnant women. So pregnant women, baby development can be assessed by this uh, acoustic wave biosensors, such as piezoelectric biosensors. Other than this, there are a few immunochromatographics and lateral flow immunodiagnostic tests and rapid diagnostic tests. So there are certain CAR tests that are also extensively based on this particular principle, piezoelectric biosensor system. So acoustic sensors use piezoelectric materials, typically quartz crystals, in order to generate acoustic waves. Their surface is usually coated with antibodies and complementary antigen. This lead to increased mass with reduced. Same story. Anyway, and, I don't want to make it complicated. Actually, they give an example of a test analyte rather than rather than a pregnant woman. Anyway, both are same. So just remember. Then amperometric biosensors. So amperometric biosensors means they can able to see the electric charge difference between two analytes. So usually this electricity will be measured in amperes. Okay, so the ampere difference between any two electrolytes can be detected by this amperometric biosensors. So these amperometric biosensors are used to measure redox reactions. So certain biochemical reactions, that means your biochemical analyzers, automatic biochemical analyzers may rely on amperometric biosensors. Then optical biosensors need not to say much. So light will be converted to electrical energy. So they can able to colorimeter, best example. So there is a device called colorimeter where you can able to measure the concentration of the substance in the test solution just by passing light. The principle is very simple. If the concentration is high in the test sample, then light will be more absorbed. So transmitted light will be less. So upon detection of the transmitted light, we can able to indirectly measure the concentration of a substance suspended in a solution. So this is the concept of an optical biosensors. Best example is a colorimeter. Then applications of biosensors. Many applications are there, not one or two. Like they can be used in food analysis. They can be used to study biomolecules and their interactions. They can be used for drug development. They can be used for crime detection, for medical diagnosis, for environmental friend monitoring, field monitoring, for industrial control, to manufacture in manufacturing of pharmaceutical and replacement of organs, in monitoring glucose levels, medical for protein engineering, waste water treatment, and agricultural industry. So there are many applications of biosensors. So this is all about biosensors in a nutshell. Then there is one more topic called automation in laboratory. So usually whenever we are saying automation, this automation is generally categorized into three areas. The three areas in a clinical laboratory are or healthcare setup are pre-analytical, analytical, post-analytical. Before giving treatment to the patient, while giving treatment to the patient, after giving treatment to the patient. In these three phases of healthcare, what type of automations we are dependent on? For example, before even admitting the patient, before even treating the patient, what type of automation we are using? We are using computers, barcodes, lasers for registering the patient details. So there is the involvement of automation. We are extensively dependent on these computers, barcoding guns, and these barcodes for registering patient details. During the testing phase, completely we relied on many automatic devices, semi-automatic and fully automatic test machines. Okay, so there we are using automations. And after the test, we are again relying on computers for report generation. So report generation is also relied on computers. So today we are extensively dependent on technology. This technology can able to help us to fast forward the things, to make things more faster, simpler, and efficient. Then these bioanalysis is further divided into three types actually. You may came across the words like discrete, continuous, semi-automatic, fully automatic bioanalysis. Discrete bioanalysis means these are the automatic devices where if one component, okay, they're like a modular based analyzers. They are called as discrete bioanalyzers. Modular based means if one sensor became problematic means we can remove the sensor and we can replace it. Such one component in a system is replaceable means such analyzers are called discrete bioanalyzers. Whereas continuous bioanalysis means if one is missing, then complete system need to be changed. So they are called continuous bioanalyzers. Then we have semi-automatic and automatic. Semi-automatic means these machines require some human interference. Say, for example, we have a cell counter, but for that cell counter to give the sample, we must hold the test tube and we must give to the probe. So the probe will take the blood. Upon collection of the blood, the machine will take care of the readings. But at least we must feed the sample to the
So you are muted.
yeah. So they are called semi-automatic bioanalyzers. So this is pretty much everything about automation and biosensors. If you want to more on types of bioanalyzers, I mean automation, then I can show you, but it will be somewhat boring. Anyway, let us do a quick surface view on this types of analyzers also. Let me open Google directly. Let me come here. I hope you can see my Chrome browser here, right? Okay, let me share my Chrome browser with you once. Yeah, I hope you can see my Chrome browser. Uh,
Yes.
Types of analyzers and automatic analyzers. Automatic automation. You can say automation in clinical laboratory or in healthcare. You can say anything. Let us see. I want to, maybe I can directly type notes. Mm. Um, 25 automation in laboratory. See, students, if you know the concept means no matter whatever the website, no matter whatever the textbook, you can able to understand. So first of all, try to have a solid foundation. If your foundation is good, then everything will be automatically good. Mm. Mm. See here. Now, students, um, so as I stated already, we have three phases of automation in the clinical setup: pre-analytical, analytical, post-analytical. Before patient, while patient, and after. Before treating the patient, while treating the patient, after treating the patient. Uh, In these three, we are using various types of automations. Now, not only relying on computers, but there should be a uniformity among these computers. There should be a connection between all these computers. All these computers must communicate each other and they must work together in the laboratory or in a hospital. So they will be kept together and their status will be monitored together by a software called a managing software called LIS. LIS stands for Laboratory Information Management System. Lab Information Management System. So this list will track all the things actually. So in the beginning phase, I given one barcode right to a patient. Now, whatever samples, whatever test we are doing in the machines, all these things will be registered on this barcode. So just by uh, giving barcode the code to the computer, it can able to track complete data of that sample irrespective of its location within the hospital. It can be in biochemistry, it can be in micro, it can be in any molecular lab. But that sample will be precisely tracked because I kept a barcode to it. So how we are tracking that means with the help of a software. And one of the most commonly and extensively used software is a LIS software. LIS stands for Laboratory Information System. So with this list only, we will do this we will track all these things. So as mentioned earlier, so informatics is one of the basic element of laboratory automation in order for us to define the quality indicators and in evaluators purposes, either in pre or post automation performances can be detected by this list softwares. So list softwares also ensure TAT. They also ensure something called TAT. TAT stands for turnaround time, or it is the time that is taken from receiving the sample to generate the report. The time taken for a production of report upon receiving a sample is called as turnaround time. If turnaround time for one particular test is 1 hour, if turnaround time for one particular test is 1 hour, if it is delayed, if it is prolonging to more than 1.5 hour, 2 hours, that indicates there is a problem with our automation. Why a test that requires only 1 hour delaying? Is my reagents empty? Is my computer is shut down? Is my incubation timing fault? So all these things can be automatically measured by list softwares. So list softwares will track automatically, and they will monitor. They will ensure the overall quality of the process that is going in within this healthcare system. So turnaround time will be very closely monitored by this list softwares. Then that's it. Then we have many types of analyzers. So okay, pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical. So we have integrator and modular. I said right? Or discrete and continuous. So integrated means everything is integrated. One best example of integrated is you cannot run an Android app in an Apple phone, right? So only you can use iOS apps, but not an Android app in a Apple. Similarly, we have certain instruments where the reagent must be purchased from only that company. For example, if we are taking an Herba Chem analyzer, we should only use Herba chemicals. If we are using another company chemicals, means the machine won't accept. That is not good actually. It's a business strategy to keep their customers interact. They will restrict the device to accept only one type of samples or reagents that taken from their company. Such systems are called integrated systems. And integrated systems has this demerit. There is no flexibility. The user choice is limited because of these restrictions by the company. So that is a disadvantage, but the advantage will be quality control. By using only their reagents, they have precisely standardized their controls. They have precisely standardized their values. So there is a very less occurrence of errors by using discrete analyzers. But the disadvantage is lack of flexibility. I cannot opt for other options to run my test. So that is a disadvantage. Advantage will be um, precise quality management can be achieved by discrete analysis. Then we have something called modular. Modular means here I can replace with anything. Uh, I can buy one Reynolds pen and I can use any refill. I can use a Montex refill. I can use all this classmate refill, anything. That means I can replace my reagent with any type of company I want. So such type of automatic automations are called as modular analytical automations. And this is the same words we will discuss in individual components. Is that machine discrete? Is that machine continuous? Is that machine modular? Well, in what phase we are using this machine? Is it using before the test, during or post test? So that is pretty much everything about automation in laboratory. No matter whatever notes you are going across, the same thing you can find. See here, I think this person given in detail notes automation in laboratory, continuous flow, discrete processing. Continuous means what? Okay, the same story. I will share these notes with you. See, I said right. Um, So there are automation for barcoding, there are automation for labeling, there are automations for everything in the laboratory. So all these automations, I think, I don't know who is this person, but he made a very good notes and he kept it on online. Oh, he's an MLT student only. His name is Tapeswar Yadav, a lecturer from DNHE. Yeah, he made a very good notes on automation. Kindly go through these notes. Just for reference, you can go through it. Let me share with you this notes. Lab automation notes. I send the notes to you. If you want, I will download it. So directly, I think nowadays SlideShare is not allowing us to download directly because it became a subscription based so thing. Anyway, I will download it. SlideShare downloader. All we need to do is you need to paste this copy the link and you need to paste in another. Think internet issues. Matrix. I think I have slow internet connection, students. Anyway, I will download and I will share the notes with you. Okay, later. Okay, I got it. Wait, 6908B. All right. All right, students. So this is all about automation. I will share the notes with you. Any doubts in this unit 6? I hope not, right? Okay, let me download your attendance. All right. Thank you very much, students. You can leave. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. If not, I will end this session. Can I end this class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much, students. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.